Today we're going to get into some spooky stories about projects gone wrong. We're going to cringe, we're going to empathize, and probably laugh a little bit. And I hope these make you feel a little less alone when things go wrong with your knitting. I have over 50 mini horror stories to share, all of them submitted by you, so thank you so much for sending these in. If you are looking for an episode that is perfect to listen to while you're doing other things around the house or you're driving, this is the one. So again, just listen to it. Please don't watch, especially if you are driving. But I am going to be putting all of the stories on the screen as well if you would like to read them along with me. Now, I've broken these down into 4 different categories: gifts, washing, sizing, and then just generally other scary stories. So we're going to go through them one by one, and we're going to end with my very favorite story. Let's start with gifts because it is about to be gifting season after all, and I hope these 12 stories remind you that not everyone needs a handmade gift this year. Okay, the first one says, knitted 2 baby blankets and not a picture of the baby using my gift. I feel like this one is so relatable that it's probably happened to every single one of us at some point in time. I don't really know a solution for this one. I feel like this is somebody who maybe you don't make a gift for in the future. Oh, but it's so sad when you put all that work into it and nobody knows. I think people that receive handmade gifts don't always know the value of them. So that makes it really tricky. This one says, if I buy the yarn, can you make this? A 1-sentence horror story. Truly. And I think we have some more that are a little more like on this topic coming up, but I have all but stopped making things for people unless I just want to, like unless I genuinely want to give them as a gift. I don't really take orders anymore. There's one person I will do that for, well, probably more than one, and they're all in my family, and they already have a really good sense of what is appropriate to ask for and what timeline to expect it in. But yeah, I'm not making things for strangers for sure. Knitted a baby blanket for my high school bestie, no acknowledgement of the gift, and it ruined our friendship. Oh no, that is terrible. No acknowledgement? How does that even happen? Did you mail it to them? They just like took it and were like, cool. And didn't say anything? I have to know more about this one. All right, these ones are going to get a little bit longer because I have a lot of people wanted to send in DMs for this one because you wanted to tell the full story. So here we go. Here's the first one. Someone saw me knitting at a Chick-fil-A and asked if I crocheted, and I said that I did. So they asked if they could order a custom dress for a baby. I had never done that before, but she was so excited, I said yes. We spent days picking out the pattern and colors. We settled on a price. I only charged her for the yarn because it was my first custom order. She asked for my address, and over the course of a month, she kept telling me she was coming to pick it up and never showed. And the colors she picked were interesting. So I was worried I wouldn't be able to sell it, but it ended up having a happy ending because someone in my neighborhood bought it. I was worried about her having my address after that, though. Okay, this is wild. First of all, the audacity of somebody to ask you to custom make something for them when they are not coming up to you at like a professional place, right? It's one thing maybe if you're selling at like a craft fair and they see the items that you make and they're like, okay, these are the prices for this. Like maybe I want it in a different color. Like that seems a little more reasonable, but just to like see somebody out and about crocheting or knitting and just assume that they would make something for you. I wonder if this even happens in other crafts. I'm sure that it does. Like somebody who maybe does woodworking and like you see that they made themselves like this amazing table and you're like, hey, would you make me a table for the cost of materials? Like Nobody would do that. That's insane. So this is so funny. I do think we've all learned this lesson as well. I definitely have. I used to do a lot more like kind of consignment. Is that the right word? Or like custom things for people. And I never felt like I was getting my money's worth for the amount of hours that you put into things. It just doesn't end up being worth it. And I think people that don't knit and crochet, they have a really hard time understanding that because they can't understand how you would continue to make things for yourself over and over again, or just make things just for the fun of it. But to this day, I feel like I've been knitting and crocheting for 20 years. I've never run out of stuff that I want to make. So oh, well, that is wild. All right. Our next story says, I was once making a lap blanket for a coworker going through a medical crisis. I had everyone in the office knit a few stitches on it. That is super sweet. I love that everyone was contributing. It was funny watching the ones who did not know how to knit give it a good try. Then one day it got tangled in my wheelchair and it ripped. I was able to cut off about the bottom 3 inches and fix it. Okay, good. But then once I left it over the arm of my sofa and my cat threw up on it. Yuck. Oh gosh. There was no way I could give that blanket as a gift after that. I felt so bad for everyone who had contributed to it. That's my worst knitting horror story, but almost all of my projects have had something bad happen to them along the way. Are you serious? Is this like a curse? I'm just lucky, I guess. By the way, I learned my lesson. I don't leave my knits where the cat can get to them anymore. So many things happened in this story. First of all, I have to commend you for making something for a coworker, one, but also like having everyone contribute to it. That's such a sweet thing to do. I really, really love that. I'm sorry that it didn't work out and it had not one, but 2 horrible things happen to it. What did happen to it? Did you throw it away? Is that what you said? Oh, you just said you couldn't gift it. Did you keep it? Or did you have to get rid of it to get rid of all of that bad energy in that blanket? I hope your future projects have a better outcome. Okay, next story says, I naively knit a fingering weight wool cotton blend sweater for a good friend's young daughter early in my sweater making days. It fit to perfection and I honestly surprised myself with the end product. She let her wear it the day I gave it to her at an event. Yay! Yeah, usually that's a good thing. And also consciously gave her permission to roll down a muddy, weeded hill at the same event. It did not survive. Wow, that is an emotional high and an emotional low to have a gift, gift something that you've put so much time into and the person loves it, it fits them, and then it immediately gets ruined. I wouldn't be able to make gifts anymore, I think, after that. Okay, next story. Before my husband and I got married, we did one blended Christmas with our families. A month earlier, we were visiting his family and his mom. So my pair of crochet boot cuffs, this was around 2015, I think it says I was wearing my pair of crochet boot cuffs. And she said I had to make her a pair. As a poor college student, I decided to make his family crochet hats for Christmas since they were going to be at my family's gift exchange. But I made his mom the crochet boot cuffs she just had to have. I think I know where this is gonna go. Christmas Day, everyone opens presents and she has a fit that she got boot cuffs instead of a hat like everyone else. Because she doesn't want the boot cuffs, she wants a hat. So his brother speaks up that that she could just have his because he would never use it. Oh my gosh. So after that, I decided no handmade gifts for people unless I specifically know they value and appreciate the work and time of a handmade gift, not just that they say they will. But like, how do you vet people for this? Like, how do you know? What is a good, this is a good community question. What is a good, like, low stakes, not a ton of time, but still a nice enough thing that you want to give somebody that you could knit or crochet as like a tester? Like, how do we test out if people are worthy of even nicer, like, materials, more time and effort into a pattern or larger projects if we haven't gifted them something in the past, right? You just don't know. And I do want to say, not everyone appreciates handmade items because they don't make them themselves. But I don't think you have to make handmade items to appreciate them. There are just different personalities out in the world. And like you said, in your family, maybe there are some people that just don't need them. That is so, like, the audacity of the brother to be like, you can have mine because I'm not going to use it. Are you kidding? Like, right in front of you? Like, he could have done that later. I'm going to make some assumptions, but I feel like mom is used to getting her way in that family. Okay, next story. I bought Madeline Tosh yarn for the first time, which was out of my price range, and made my mom an infinity scarf. Turned out she wasn't into infinity scarves, so I let my sister have it because she liked the style and color. Okay, that sounds all right, but then she lost it the first time she wore it. Really? Lost it. That's just so sad. Especially when you like went out of your way to get this really nice yarn. Keep that nice yarn for yourself. Okay, next story. My knitting horror story. The very first pair of socks I knit, I gave them to my then husband as a gift. He wore them out. Oh my God. I remember reading this one when I was sorting things out. Just get ready for this description. He wore them out in 2 days because he didn't take care of his feet, and his heels had the actual consistency of sandpaper. I also saw him walking into a bowling alley with my hand-knit wool mittens falling out of his pockets, and he didn't notice. He's lucky I was a few feet behind with my kids. Even at 8 and 9, they knew how to properly care for their hand knits. I see you started this story by saying then husband. I see. But I think this is such a good story to illustrate that it doesn't really matter like age, honestly, or like other things. Like there are just some people who are going to take better care of things than others. And it's maybe just our bent in life. Like some people just don't handle things well. And so if you see somebody that's not handling, their store-bought things well or keeping up with stuff, maybe they don't get a hand-knitted item. Because like you said, your kids at 8 and 9 knew to take care of those hand knits. Crazy. All right, next story. I was a pretty new, very slow knitter when my friend asked if I could knit booties to help her announce her pregnancy. I agreed, and she said she would pay me. Then she said she wanted 3 pairs and that my price was too high. What the heck? She should have stepped up at that point and set a boundary, but I agreed to a lower price and it barely covered the cost of yarn. I made a wrong assumption and thought that she intended for the booties to be worn by the baby, so I made them in different sizes since they were all the same color. And what baby needs 3 pairs of green booties all in the same size? Well, I knit late into the night for weeks and finally deliver them. She loves them and I'm happy to just be finished with the project. She then drops the bomb that the booties will be framed in shadow boxes and never worn by the baby. I was crushed and so sad that I had made the larger sizes, which took up more of my time than the littlest size. We both moved away from the town where we met, and I don't keep in touch. Oh, that is really sad. Like, first of all, shame on her for like going back on the price and asking for more things. Like, that's not cool at all. But like, I don't know. And then the size thing, that is such a bummer. You were so thoughtful to make all of those different sizes for the baby, and it turns out you didn't need to do all that work. I'm so sorry. I do hope that because they are going in a shadow box, they're actually going to get used for longer than maybe if the baby did wear them. Like, that's maybe the one like sort of like light in this story, is that maybe since they're already in a preserved place, like they actually will be kept for a very long time. That's what I'm going to hope for the end of the story, even though I guess we won't ever know. All right, we have 2 more. As a relatively new knitter, I started a double knitted blanket for my BFF. I didn't finish in time for her birthday, so I showed her the squares and told her I'd be done with it soon. But more than 4 years later, I still haven't finished. It haunts me to this day. Maybe someday it will become an FO and I'll find peace. Oh my gosh. As somebody who had 2 blankets that turned 5 years old before I finished them, I just want to give you permission to let go of this. I don't think you need to finish it. I think you should just either decide that you're going to finish it by like X date and grind and get it done, or you should ceremoniously toss it and let go of all of this guilt because it's just unfair. I'm sure your friend is not even worried about it in the slightest, and yet every time you look at your project bags, you have to think of this. So there's your permission slip to let it go. All right, here's the last story for gifts, and this one came to me in an email. I just saw your story on Instagram. If it's not too late, I need to share my horror story. If I'm too late, it's okay, and I'll let you know you're not too late. I'm going to include it in the video. Anyway, this was back in 2011. A good friend of mine, or so I thought, was pregnant, so I knitted a teddy bear for her baby shower. I worked with her mother-in-law. A few months later, when I got to work one Monday morning, the bear was sitting in my chair at my desk waiting for me. Apparently, my friend had a garage sale over the weekend and was going to sell it in a garage sale. My mother-in-law had rescued it for me because she knew the work that had gone into it. So now he's a very beloved member of my family. I attached pictures because he's just so darn cute, and we do have pictures of the bear. Thank you for sending them. He is so darn cute. You have little clothes on him. Actually, we have a couple different pictures. And also he looks like huge. Like this took a lot of time. It's very detailed. You can see like the decreases on him. He's stuffed really nicely. So he is absolutely adorable. Going back to your story, you said, yeah, that one stung. I cannot believe that when they got rid of it, it was found. That's actually so wild. I'm so grateful your mother-in-law found it and rescued it for you. That is a semi-happy ending, but how dare she? How dare she get rid of it? And not only get rid of it, but try to make money from it. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Do you think she didn't know that it was handmade? Like, I almost think that we need to be loud about when gifts are handmade. Like, I do believe my gift philosophy is that a gift is a gift. So once you give it to somebody, it's really not my responsibility for what you do with it. I've already done the gifting part. I was happy to do it for you. But it really does hurt if you then find out that they did something like kind of not cool with it. Like, maybe if she had just donated it or passed it on to somebody else, maybe it wasn't her style, like fine. But to sell it at a garage sale, are you kidding me? It sounds like it's a small community. You were gonna find out. That is just so wild. So if you have a story about gifting that you want to share, I feel like this is a very touchy subject, which is why we removed the names on this one just to protect everybody. Gifts was actually the second largest category. So of all the stories, there were so many about gifts, but the largest category is actually washing. So like washing or blocking or different things to do with that. You are really going to cringe with this one, so be prepared. Maybe you don't have a drink in your mouth or something, you might spit it out at this one. All right, let's get started with these stories about washing gone wrong. Okay. The first one says, I knit a cowl with handspun, was so proud until I threw it in the washer. It's so sad, especially handspun. There's going to be a lot of stories very similar to this, so just brace yourself. This one is from Boston Jen, and actually I just listened to you tell this story on your podcast as well. I just washed a hexagon blanket I crocheted, and the double magic circles broke open. So if you are not a crocheter, you might not know what the magic circle is, but just imagine a granny square. You start it in the center. It has this like circle that you start and you work around and around and around. There's a technique called double magic circle. There's a technique called magic circle. I have learned personally that it is not reliable. I made an entire granny square blanket. When I washed mine, it broke apart, but then I realized, hey, it's because I just crocheted over them one time. So basically, it was a really tiny end that was not going to last anyway. So you did double magic circles and they still didn't hold. I can't remember the exact number. Like I said, I listened to your podcast, but I can't remember the number. And it was a lot of the circles in the hexagon. So they're so hard to fix too. Like it is painstaking. Like you can fix them, but it is painstaking to grab all of those loose loops. And if they've started to unravel, possibly not even salvageable. I'm so sorry. That stinks. This one says, felted the first sweater I ever knit. It was my favorite knit and fit perfectly. That was a sad day. My gosh, sad day indeed. Didn't fully understand blocking. Took a steam iron to my silk wedding shawl. Made a new one. Okay, I don't know about this. Can we not steam silk? I guess I haven't really done too much with silk. Like the only things I've done with silk are silk and wool blends. So I guess don't steam your silk because something might happen to it. Did it melt? Did it just totally come apart? Oh, that stinks. But I'm glad you made a new one. Finished my first ever sweater and my son, 2 years old, put it in the wash for me. Totally felted baby size. What? Hold on, I feel like I read that wrong. Put it in the wash for me, totally felted and baby size. Yikes. We really got to be checking the yarns and how they can be washed. This is why I don't put my sweaters in the wash. I really don't put anything in the wash except for socks because I'm terrified. Socks, whatever. I'll make more socks, but sweaters, I don't want anything happening to them. I knit socks with my handspun yarn and then they ended up in the dryer. They could now fit a baby. Oh my gosh. Not the handspun yarn again. That's like the saddest thing. It's like not only did you just spend all this time like knitting or crocheting your socks, so you said knitted, so knitting your socks, but you also spun the yarn. Like you can't get that back. It's so sad. So sad. I made a shawl with a crab. Sorry, I read crab and I was like, huh? Okay, made a shawl with a crab using intarsia. There's a crab motif on this. When I wet blocked it, the crab fell apart? What? What the heck happened? Did the stitches fall apart? Did the yarn fall apart? That is truly horrific. I am so sorry that happened. This one looks like it's a two-parter. I spent 2 months on my Rhinebeck sweater. First one I ever made. It got thrown in the washer and shrunk. I spent hours looking up how to fix it. Oh man, you really can't reverse that once something felts or fulls. It may get a little bit bigger, but the yarn is never going back to how it is going to be originally, and it is so, so sad. I'm sure a lot of us can raise our hands and say, that's happened to us, but it never gets easier. Okay, here's another long one. This year, I attended the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival for the first time. After returning home and looking over the vendor list, I had found an indie dyer that I missed seeing in person who was selling a lovely yarn, which was dyed in the colors of the Maryland flag. I just knew I needed to make a small carriage blanket for my son and daughter-in-law, who now reside in Maryland and are expecting their first child. That's a lovely idea. I love that. Side note, my first grandchild arrived just yesterday. Oh, congrats. That's so exciting. I worked feverishly to whip up this blanket to gift them at their shower. As with all my hand knit and crocheted items, I gently washed it before gifting, and unfortunately, all of the colors ran. All the white became pink, and all the other colors were muted. Oh, no. I worked with the dyer to try a variety of remedies, including color grabbers, and believe it or not, Ultra Dawn? Interesting. I've never heard that one. Unfortunately, each washing rendered even worse results. The dyer did refund my money, and I eventually just sent her back the blanket for her to experiment on, since she said this never happened with any of her yarns before. Oh, that's so sad. You find the perfect yarn, and you're making this adorable blanket, and then you go to wash it, and things come apart. So this is so hard. We've been talking about this actually in the podcast for the past few weeks because somebody asked a question about yarn bleeding. They had made I think it was a striped sweater, and it had white and then like a darker color in it. And when they washed it, the colors bled. So I'm not a dyer, so please take this with a grain of salt, but there's some science to this, okay? So when yarn, okay, let's back up to yarn at the dyer. So when the dyer makes their yarn, the colors, the like dye itself gets absorbed into the yarn, and then the dyer typically will wash that yarn so that any extra will come off. However, it's completely normal once you get home and once you make your item for a little more dye to come off. In fact, I just washed a sweater for like the second or third time and a ton of dye came off, which is super weird because I don't remember the dye really coming off all that much in my other blocks, but it's always possible. So if you are making something that has some really light and some really dark colors, whether they're in one yarn altogether or they're in separate yarns like you've striped or done color work, I highly recommend using color catchers. I actually just cleaned up from recording my podcast this week, and I don't have them down here, but maybe we can put a picture in. They're different brands make them, but Shout, they make one that works really well. It's a color, it's like almost looks like a dryer sheet, and you have to put it in with your first block or it's not going to do anything. So essentially what I think happens is that when you put something in water, the dye is going to come off, right? And then it's going to look for something to adhere to. So if you have the color catcher in there, it's supposed to go ahead and take that dye and like slurp it up. But if you don't have a color catcher in there, that dye runoff is going to look for something to adhere to, and that is your lighter color. So I think you can help avoid that with like other things. Like I've heard people say stuff about vinegar, or I don't know, other things you can put in your water, but all of our water is different, right? Your dyer may have hard or soft water and you may have the opposite, and it reacts differently. So it's such a bummer because you never really know what is going to happen. So my lesson for the day is that whenever you have really contrasting colors, go ahead and throw a color catcher in there. It's not going to hurt your stuff and it may just help. But I'm so sorry that this happened. That totally stinks. And I think once the dye is on your other colors, there's nothing you can do about it. Like that dye is on there. It's not like you can go and just bleach part of it. So such a bummer. Really nice of the dyer to work with you and refund the money. I'm hoping that she figures out what happened. Maybe it got missed getting washed or something like that. Okay, next story. My horror story. Knit my first pair of socks and loved them so much. I did my first colorwork project on them and everything. Well, my husband saw them on the top of my hand washing basket and thought it must be a mistake that they were there, and threw them in with a bunch of other stuff. Well, he likes to use hot water in the toughest cycle imaginable. Needless to say, the colorwork is mostly faded and they are now too small for me to use. He felt so bad and offered to buy me new yarn to remake them, but sadly it was a seasonal yarn set that is not available now. He was trying to help and all is forgiven. We'll send pictures. Oh my goodness. It's always worse when it's somebody else, right? But at least he was really sweet about it. But yeah, that's the thing about hand-dyed yarn is sometimes you cannot recreate it. And like a lot of times you don't want to, right? Like you already made it once. So it's always so sad. We've got some pictures here. So I must have said something to you that I did crop out, not like intentionally. I just wanted to get your pictures in here. But you said, yes, he was so sad. So all is forgiven and saw he was trying. Here's the before. So the before picture's on top and the after, and you can definitely see those stripe colors are faded. It kind of looks like your like white yarn is a little bit darker as well. And you said not bad, but the cuffs squeeze into my calves now. That is so sad. It's such a bummer when you make something so great. You said your first colorwork socks, and then they look like that. You said these were my first attempt at sock knitting and colorwork. Wow, actually that is so impressive. I frogged the design over and over again and was so proud to actually get them done. You actually inspired me to try. Oh, that's so cool. And I think these were my sweetheart sock pattern, which is a really fun one. I'm so sorry. That stinks. That stinks. Okay, next story. I knitted a gorgeous cable knit cardigan in alpaca and merino wool for my friend, which took 5 weeks to make. I was so proud of it. She wore it once and put it in the washing machine, and now it's baby sized. Still love her, but now I've learned to provide people with detailed care instructions. Let that be a lesson for us all. When you send a gift, at least it sounds like she appreciated it. That doesn't help at all, does it? That does not help at all. Okay, the next story says, I had a special yarn from a trip where I conceived my daughter. I knit her a dress, and after the first wear, it accidentally ended up in a hot wash cycle. So sad, it still worked, but it looked very worn after that. We got to be checking through every piece of laundry when we're putting it in the washing machine, okay? It's still going to happen. I know it's still going to happen, but as a precaution. The next story says, I spun some gorgeous fingering weight merino yarn. I was going to knit a shawl for a friend. The yarn accidentally got mixed in with the laundry and came out of the dryer as a felted mass. Okay, I can't say that's ever happened before for me, that the yarn gets mixed in with the laundry. But yeah, there's no recovering from that. That stinks. The next one says, wet blocked my just finished dark green boucle sweater with light cuffs. Do we know where this one is going? And the green dye bled all over the light gray yarn. I thought I could get it out with a gentle bleach-free dye stain remover, and it ended up patchy, removing almost all of the dye from the entire sweater. Oh no! It went from dark green to yellow and orange and a nasty looking mess. I haven't looked at it since then. I'm so sorry, that stinks. Oh gosh. I'm telling you, you got to use those I was just talking about them. Those color sheets. What are they called? I'm so worked up from the story. I can't even think of what they're called, but they help a lot. Color catchers. Okay, next story. I knit felted slippers. Oh, this is actually so funny. I remember this one. I knit felted slippers. Unfortunately, I made them in super wash yarn. They just grew and grew. I gave in and threw them away. This one made me giggle because it's like the opposite of all the other stories where something that you didn't want to shrink or felt ends up in the washer and gets messed up, right? And here you are trying to make something that will felt, but accidentally used yarn that won't felt. Hey, what's the name of this superwash yarn though? Because it sounds like it might be a good solution for gifting because it will never, ever felt, even when you try over and over again. I do need to know that. Okay, next story says, I knitted a gorgeous cable knit cardigan. Oh, wait, sorry. Did I already read this one? Oh, this is supposed to go with one of our stories from a couple ago. Sorry, Kent. Kent is my husband and he edits everything. So following up on the story about the alpaca and merino wool sweater, it was the Taylor Swift cardigan. And yes, that is a beautiful sweater. Lots of cables, lots of work. I'm so sorry that that happened. Okay, this is the last one about washing. Okay, Natalie, your spooky idea inspired me. I have a horror story for you. About 10 years ago, I knit my first ever cable sweater, a very intricate pattern which I found in an 80s knitting magazine, and in black too. Black cables, eek! Anyway, it took me ages to knit in a really beautiful alpaca and merino yarn, which was pretty costly. About a week after I finished it, I wore it, and when undressing in the evening, stupidly left it to air on the edge of my dirty laundry basket as it was the only place I had at hand in my tiny Parisian bathroom. The next morning, still half asleep, I decided to do a black load in the washing machine and grabbed everything black from my basket, including, you guessed it, my beautiful cable jumper. When I realized what had happened, it was too late. Oh no, you realized it while it was happening? The cycle was over, so I sent my husband to check, and his face, I'm picturing this now. His face when he came back into the room told me all I needed to know. That's so sad. Looking forward to your horror episode. Thank you for your fab content. Oh, thank you for saying that. Oh no, I can't imagine. Like, I get that feeling sometimes that like, you know, it's like hours later and you realize something that you forgot or did earlier and you're like, no, no. And that sense of dread is almost worse than what actually happened. So I can only imagine how you were feeling when you realized that it was too late and it had already gotten washed. So I would love to take just a moment of silence for all of the sweaters and other items that we have lost in the wash here, and for any of you out there who have also lost something handmade. Oh my God, I can't do it. Our next category is sizing, kind of like gauge and size. And these really made me laugh so hard. I think it was because a lot of you were answering in those small like Instagram story reply boxes. And so you only had like one sentence to write your story. And so they're just written so perfectly. So I'm kind of just going to read through these ones real quick. But there's only a few stories about sizing, which tells me that we're doing pretty good, I think, in the like fit department, maybe. At least I'm hoping that's what that means. Okay, first one says, tried to crochet socks for my brother-in-law. My nephew got a very large green Christmas stocking instead. That must have been a very large sock. I'm glad you could repurpose it. I once crocheted a jumper for someone, but didn't check gauge. It was enormous in faux fur yarn. Oh, you know, it's hard to knit in faux fur yarn. I can't imagine crocheting in faux fur yarn. That is great. I was 2/3 of the way done with my first Rocket Tee shirt. It was too big. I had to frog and restart. Ugh, I've been there. And you just like are in denial, right? You're like, it's either too big or too small and you're like, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's just looking that way because it's on the needles. It's just looking that way. It'll block. It never does. You got to trust your gut when it comes to those things. This one says, tried to make a vest. Front sides were 2 different lengths. How? How did you do that? I shouldn't be saying that because I once made a crocheted kind of wrap sweater, and I had 2 different sleeve lengths. And that was because I did one like a year before the next one and my gauge had totally changed. So even doing the same number of rows, it came out completely different. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, when I was making my Salty Days sweater last year, I kept changing the length of the sleeves, and I would like change one, then change the other. And then at the end, I had messed them up and I had to fix one. So yeah, I'm very guilty of this one. Okay, last one about size. I cast on the Talvinin, I don't know how to say that one, by Caitlin Hunter. First colorwork project. Working as an archaeologist, I was on a flight. Side note, very cool that you're an archaeologist. I was on a flight and nearly finished. The flight attendant asked if I was knitting a sweater for a toddler. It was 3 sizes too small for me. I couldn't figure that out until weeks into a different project, months later. Or I wouldn't figure that out until weeks into another project. Oh my gosh. I didn't gauge swatch, obviously, lesson learned. Wow, that is great. Oh my gosh. Just like that thought of the flight attendant saying that, and you're like, no, it's for me. Buckle up here because our last category is no category. These stories are kind of all over the place, but they are so much fun. So we have 14 more stories to go. Okay, first one says, I laddered down on a lace chart, like in the very middle, and it was so scary. You're very brave to do that, honestly. Like, I don't know if I could ladder down in lace. Like stockinette, no. garter stitch is hard enough for me. So very impressive. Breaking my pumpkin-colored furls crochet odyssey in the middle of making an amigurumi was scary. I would say so. How did you break that? Those were like really sturdy, I thought. I also, I have never used a furls hook. They have a head on them that is just not my preference, but they're very expensive. So that would be the scariest part for me, is knowing that something's just broken that is going to be difficult to replace. My suitcase got lost with 300 pounds worth of knitting needles. Did you ever find it? Oh my goodness. That's a lot of knitting needles. So you take your whole case with you? That's the only way I can think of that it would be that many knitting needles. What do knitting needles cost? Like at least maybe $15 per? I can't do that math. But you had a lot of knitting needles in there is what I'm guessing, and that really stinks. Okay, next story says, finishing a colorwork yoke to realize you skewed the chart 1/3 of the way through and need to frog. Oh, I don't know why this is bringing up for me a moment that happened when I used to work at a yarn store and somebody came in for help and they were working on a colorwork dress for a child. It was colorwork and it was in the round and they had twisted the join. And they had like this much knitting done. And they had realized that they had twisted the join or twisted it. And they were asking if there was any way to fix it. And I was like, unless you cut it and like steek it, there's no way to fix the twist. Like the twist is in there. So your story just triggered that for me. That was such a sad moment for me to have to share that with that person. Next story says, crocheted on a pocket shawl for months, woven the ends, blocked it to find a hole. This has also happened to me. I made a Stephen West shawl a few years ago, one of the mystery ones, and I think it was one that I had like not finished during the make along, so I really pushed to finish it later. It took me forever. I blocked it and there was a hole in it in the middle, like the yarn had snapped or one of my ends, or I got it caught on something. I still don't know what happened. I fixed it and then eventually realized that I didn't really care for it and I gave it away. I gave it away because I was like, I can't do this anymore. Okay, this is an interesting one. I don't know how to interpret this, so tell me how you would interpret this. Hotel GM's mother is a knitter. I let him know just as a heads up. He comped me one night. Kind of creepy, right? Like, how do we take this? Like, you're staying at a hotel, you find out that the general manager's mother is a knitter. You, like, I guess, let him know that you are also a knitter, you know, just to kind of like make a connection. And he comped you a night. Like, that's really nice. But like, what does that mean? I want to take this in the best way and say that this is all just very nice. But I feel like if this is, let's say, like you're going on a work trip and you continue to go back to the same hotel, what are you trying to say? I didn't know how to take that one, so there you go. Next one says, not sure if this really counts as a knitting horror story, but my now ex-boyfriend was helping me clean once and tried to throw away many knitting patterns I had because it's just paper taking up space. And a few of them I only had the physical copies of. Thankfully, I caught him in time and stopped him. He was a neat freak and viewed a lot of my knitting stuff as clutter and stuff that needed to be gotten rid of. I unfortunately couldn't see that relationship was doomed from the start. 6 months after that incident, I dumped him. He's a nice guy, but we just weren't compatible long term. Yeah, I think once you found that he was trying to get rid of your knitting stuff, that was never going to work out. We left my oldest son's lace baby blanket that I knit while pregnant in our hotel room when we checked out. By the time we got home and realized it, it was gone. It still makes me sad he doesn't have it because he's a blanket guy and still sleeps with his other baby blankets. Oh, that's so sweet. What a bummer. I have done this before, not with anything knitted, luckily, but I always leave stuff in the bed. Like specifically sweatshirts or like blankets, they get like in the bedding and then I don't see that they're there when I'm leaving the hotel and it gets left behind. So I'm so sorry that you lost that. That's super sad. I had a skein that when I tried to wind it every few meters had a clean break in it. No phrase, just a clean cut break. Like someone had taken scissors to random sections of the skein. No explanation, no bugs, no phrase, just a spooky skein that looked intact in Hank form and on the Swift, but was actually in dozens of pieces. What? That is so wild. Yeah, that is scary because you never know what actually happened to that skein. Could it be bugs? Probably not if it's a clean break, but like also what happened? That's so strange. Next story. I recently crocheted the same row about 5 times over again in a mandala blanket because I missed a bobble, which is really obvious. Did I notice it at the beginning of the round when it was easy to knit back? Nope. Or rip back, sorry. Rip back. Nope. I noticed it as I started the next round. On my 3rd retry, I noticed it after about 30 more rounds because the count wasn't adding up. It took an entire day and took forever to rip out. Not to mention my yarn was such a tangled mess at the end because it was a center pull cake. Ugh, it makes me so frustrated to even think about it again. Oh my gosh, super relatable, like so relatable. I feel like especially in crochet, because you can't like drop back down in that same spot and repair it as you can sometimes in knitting, a lot of the times in knitting, it is so frustrating because your only way to really get it right without fudging is to go all the way back. And like you said, did you notice it like right away? No, because you're looking at it when you go back over that row again or realize your stitch count is wrong. Literally so relatable. I could probably pull out like so many projects that happened to me with, except that I never remember after the fact, but it sounds like that one is still haunting you. Okay, this one has a photo with it. My knitting horror story, the shawl that ended up looking like an athletic support. It did not block out. Oh my goodness. I think there's a whole, or there used to be like a hashtag called like, I don't know if it was like shawl or thong, or like shawls that look like thongs or something like that. But it's very funny because when you start out a, triangular looking shawl, it is very funny looking until you really get some, fabric on there. But it sounds like yours never quite, never quite changed, which is hilarious. Thank you so much for sharing the image. A family member had watched a video on how to crochet. They got confused and asked me to help explain it to them in person. I showed them how to do it, and then they kept trying to correct me. Kept saying that that's not what the video said to do. This went on for like 30 minutes of them repeatedly telling me that I was wrong because I tried to have them explain where they thought I was making a mistake. It got so bad that I had them pull back up the video and show me. The video showed I was doing it correctly. At the time, I had 10 years of crochet experience and haven't tried to teach someone since. Oh my goodness. That's so annoying. That's so frustrating. I mean, not everyone is like this, granted. Like, not everyone is going to insist that they're doing it the right way when they are learning, but there are just some of us that want to be so right. Me included, unfortunately. But that does sound very frustrating, and yeah, no more lessons for them. My compliance officer gives away flying monkeys for employees that are doing well. You heard that right. I had to reread this story so many times when I was organizing it. My compliance officer gives away flying monkeys. This is just an arbitrary thing for employees that are doing well, going above expectations or something along those lines. She started last year, so there have been maybe 2 given away so far. She said, oh, maybe for the 5th year, you could make a flying monkey or a flying monkey hat. That'd be so cute. I have not gotten a flying monkey. She's also shown me sweater inspo for sweaters I could make her if she buys the yarn for it. This one kind of makes my blood boil because just from this alone, I'm getting a sense of the personality of this person and that they may be a little bit entitled. that they think, oh, you could just real quick make me a flying monkey, right? Or like real quick make me a flying monkey hat. Meanwhile, have they given out a flying monkey to like that many people? No. Have you gotten one? No. Why would you make that for them? Why? Anyway, I would like to give you something. Here's a flying monkey just for you because you deserve it for dealing with them. I cannot. Okay, we have come to our final story. I did save this one intentionally for last because it has a little bit of a twist to it and it made me go, "Aw." So here you go. We're going to end on a high note. My knitting horror story with a very happy ending. I was about halfway through a sweater and I realized I'd made a pretty big and important mistake at the very beginning, so I needed to frog to the beginning. My boyfriend sat there patiently watching me frog the sweater and complain while waiting to go on a walk. Turns out he was waiting with my engagement ring in his pocket the whole time. He proposed on the walk in my favorite park. Did not complain that my knitting mishap delayed his carefully laid out plans. He's a keeper. Indeed, he is. And this story made me smile so much because at the end of the day, projects gone wrong or not, we need those people in our lives that are going to support us through this incredible hobby, right? Like it is part of everything that we do, and that is why there are horror stories to go along with it. So I hope you had fun today and you enjoyed this little like Halloween themed sort of horror story. I enjoyed reading your stories so much. I can't tell you enough. Like, thank you for sending these in because without your stories, I would have nothing to chat about because I would have no stories to share. So thank you again for sharing these and thanks for sticking around to the end if you did. I have more fun videos coming up soon, so stick around. You're going to want to see them. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!